Following is a narrated presentation for Applied Understandings of Leadership, assignment number 3, by Lanny Knowles and Polly Bazaran. It's done for Education 5401, Education Principles and Processes of Educational Leadership, Thompson Rivers University, and our professor's name is Dr. Tori Hanford. So an introduction, teamwork and conflict resolution, and why. So why team building and conflict resolution? Well, in the realm of effective leadership, team building and conflict resolution are intertwined practices that go hand in hand. Team building and conflict resolution are crucial elements of effective leadership. By prioritizing team building and conflict resolution strategies, leaders can cultivate cohesive teams, enhance collaboration, and create a positive work environment. The scholarly journals are riddled with articles that mention how important team building and collaboration are for the creativity and innovation of an organization. Recent scholarly articles also mention team building as being a key characteristic associated with distributed learning, and how increasing capacity of your workforce and increasing the number of perspectives and people involved in the decision-making process can lead to more robust ideas that are new and novel, which can help a company succeed in a more competitive global market. So, the importance of team building and increasing the capacity of an organization through team building is well documented, an essential idea in many leadership and organizational structures, hence why we chose it. But incorporating multiple perspectives with unique and different ideas will inevitably lead to conflict, as conflict is an interactive process. It is for this reason that we believe it is also important to study conflict and positive conflict resolutions, because it's inevitable that with team building you will have this. So building the team. Okay, so first things first, team performance is the quality of decision making, the ability to implement decisions, the outcomes of teamwork in terms of problem solved and work completed. And finally, the quality of institutional leadership provided by the team. If a problem is diagnosed as a team development problem, then the leader needs to determine the appropriate action to solve this relational problem. Example, managing conflict or building commitment. Team members have specific and unique roles, where the performance of each role contributes to collective success. This means that the cause of team failure may reside not only in the members' inability, but also in their collective failure to coordinate and synchronize their individual contributions. So this really focuses on the idea of building up a team will inevitably lead to conflict. So what is conflict resolution in leadership? Well, conflict is an expressed struggle between one or more competing positions held by one or more individuals, usually based on incompatible beliefs, ideas, or goals. Or, more simply stated by Melamine and Rime in 2000, conflict arises when one or more participants views the current system or relationship as not working. Administrators, teachers, students, parents, and other employees are in constant communication and interaction in order for educational facilities to reach success. Therefore, it can be assumed as natural to have disagreements. So we'll really apply these concepts and how these ideas will actually show up in practice. So the first case study here, scenario number 1, team building conflict resolution, is done from Polly Bazaran's perspective. So a few years ago, I held the role of a team leader in the recruitment department at a market research company where I am currently employed. The team I led consists of 2 recruiters who were responsible for completing data analysis for projects. During that time, I noticed tensions and conflicts emerging between the recruiters, which were negatively impacting both their productivity and their overall morale. Recognizing the need for intervention, I proactively took the initiative to implement team building and conflict resolution strategies. One of the primary conflicts within the team revolved around a disagreement between the 2 recruiters concerning the interpretation of the data analysis for one of the projects. This conflict was causing significant delays in completing a crucial report for our client. In response, I promptly addressed the conflict using a conflict resolution approach. According to Hill 2013, the leader needs the ability to perform these skills to make a strategic choice as to the most appropriate function or skill for the intervention. For example, if the leader decides that team members were not getting along, he or she might decide to initiate conflict management. To be an effective leader, one needs to respond with the actions that is required of the situation. Thus, it is the job of the leader to analyze and mediate the situation to make the best decision for the good of the team. In an effort to promote team cohesion and proactively address any potential conflicts, I introduced a structured schedule of monthly team meetings to create a positive team building environment. These meetings served as a platform for recruiters to openly discuss and align their methodologies, promoting consistency and reducing the chances of conflict arising from different approaches. Over the following weeks, I witnessed a remarkable improvement in the team dynamic. The recruiters started collaborating more effectively, actively seeking input from each other, and adeptly resolving conflicts in a constructive manner. As a result, productivity saw a significant boost. Data analysis reports demonstrated higher quality, and an overall atmosphere of positivity and unity permeated the team. According to Hill 2013, for teams to be successful, their organizational culture needs to support employee involvement. Parker 1990 has found that the integration of organizational teams yields improved productivity, efficient resource utilization, enhanced decision-making and problem-solving abilities, higher quality products and services, as well as increased innovation and creativity. So scenario 2, this is another situation, it's actually, from my perspective as a teacher, just things that I've dealt with in the classroom. So the educational situation I'm going to discuss is a situation that far too many teachers are familiar with and is a common occurrence between teachers and parents, the whole contacting home. When a situation has occurred in the classroom, which is more often than not good news. Unfortunately, quite often when parents have contact with their teachers, something has occurred at school. They just assume it's negative. It could be positive as well, but this is a negative situation. So this sort of set the stage for the situation. It says, in the middle of math class, Jimmy throws his pencil on the floor in frustration and yells out, "I hate this! This is stupid! When am I ever going to use this?" He then stomps out of the room, stopping by the class bulletin board to rip down all the posters and bulletins. This situation must be dealt with as soon as possible so the situation does not get worse, so that the other students are not encouraged to say and act in a similar way. Not responding and ignoring the situation is a possible strategy, but by not doing anything, you're giving all the other students silent permission to do and or act the same. Actions that reinforce the already established classroom rules will show a connection between the teacher's words and actions, Dry 1995, and creates an environment in which increased feelings of social justice and equality. EDUC 2022 goes on to mention that the conflicts that are not resolved and dealt with correctly can be destructive and create long-lasting harm and discontent within the organization. The classroom is the organization in this case. When contacting home, so this is the actual call home. When contacting home, it's important to see the correct tone and find common ground. In this case, Jimmy is the common ground. Quite often, by the time you have contacted home, the story has already been told to the parents, with perhaps important key pieces of information left out. So it's good to do a recap of the events that occurred. It is good to note during the retelling of events is that the description that you are giving is how the perceived events. It is always useful to remember that we will have different perspectives of what is true for you may not be true for everybody else or for someone else. Once you've completed the retelling of the events that transpired, it's always a good practice to ask the other party, the parents in this case, what their thoughts on the matter are and encourage them to talk about it and tell the story from their perspective, what they've heard. Resolving conflict is an interactive process, and as the classroom teacher, you cannot expect to come to an understanding of the situation that will, hopefully, also be reinforced at home unless both parties, the parents and the teachers, feel like they have been heard. In order to come to an agreement or a plan going forward, it is often useful to discuss the conversation on the future and not to dwell on the events of the past, of what's transpired. At the end of the conversation, it's always helpful to focus on how the changes will help the student. When a conflict is addressed and resolved correctly, it's no longer a negative experience and can actually become a positive experience that will help all parties to grow. So there's another situation. This is more of a conflict between two teachers and the paradigm and pedagogical connections. So the conflict happens here. I'll set the stage here. At noon hour lunch sessions, another teacher mentions that they would prefer to do their own thing and not use communal resources that have been developed collaboratively. To expand on this problem a little bit, they still want to use the assessment, the formative assessments or the summative assessments, the tests and things that they're going to use that have been developed collaboratively. So the students won't have a benefit here because they may be asked questions on the summative report that they might have had a different experience in the classroom to get to. So here we go. EDUC summarizes that the ideas of Rahim 2002 and Loom 2008, where he defines conflict as an interactive process involving disagreement, discrepancy, or incompatibility between two or more individuals or groups on any subject. It is a dispute resulted by non-matching interests between two interdependent parties. And conflict is an expressed struggle between one or more competing positions held by one or more individuals, usually based on incompatibility of beliefs, ideas, or goals. I refer to these definitions of conflict as they are directly related to the situation above. Conflict is often caused by difference of ideas or values. So, interpersonal conflicts are the most common conflicts in schools, as there is constant communication, teamwork, and collaboration between multiple stakeholders, teachers, administrators, and school representatives. In the above situation, it's best to try and deal with the conflict on their own, in a casual and communicative environment, rather than immediately reacting to it and heightening the conflict further by bringing the concerns immediately to the department head or administration. But this requires that teachers also have experience and training in conflict management. Dealing with this type of conflict employs many of the same strategies that are used when dealing with a conflict stemming from working with parents. Although open communication, clarifying the issues at hand, and perspective telling are also used, the main difference is the explanation of how pedagogical decisions to do your own thing, teachers in question would like to use the collaboratively developed final assessments still, can and will affect multiple students and student learning as a whole. So just discussing how your choices and how your decisions affect the learning of kids. As a consequence of previous team building and relationship building experiences, both parties in this case are comfortable sharing their opinions, ideas, perspectives, feelings, and thoughts, revealing the root of the conflict and turning a negative experience into a positive one. Just an interesting note here, interpersonal and interdepartmental conflicts are perceived as being the most common in schools. Often conflicts between teachers of this kind are a result of a lack of acceptance and understanding. So in order to resolve these types of conflicts, an explanation of why things are done the way they are, and a clarification of the grand scheme and the individual's role in it are needed. So really to express your understanding of this conflict, so to let everyone know, because misunderstandings are the root of it. So really communication is the solving of this. So leadership and team learning. So what have your group members learned about leadership from working on this project? Well, during the creation of this project, we used a participatory leadership style. Participatory leadership practices are very similar to distributed leadership, as all members have input into the decision-making process and get involved to complete the necessary outcomes and goals. Each member is responsible for completing and putting into practice the ideas that they have come up with. A distributed perspective presses us to identify and explore the enactment of leadership tasks, and these tasks are performed by multiple formal and informal leaders. Spline 2004. This statement highlights the importance of understanding how leadership responsibilities were shared and enacted among each of us in the group. It was really a team because there's only two of us, but that's a story for another day. The first lesson that was very apparent was that not being in a centralized location where you can actually interact, meet in person, makes collaboration quite difficult. I think this experience really exemplifies how working from home does not work in this type of situation. Working at home has many valuable perspectives and things, but coming together as a collaboration is not one of them. The second lesson was that it was counterintuitive, as we originally assumed that we had different past experiences. One member was in education and the other was in marketing. our experience and views would be very different and a hindrance. But after working together, we learned that this difference in past experiences and perspectives was not a hindrance at all. In fact, it was invaluable. The third lesson was through this project is that difference should be celebrated and not assumed to be a bad thing. Having multiple people with different strengths was a huge benefit, as each group member could take charge and complete the various aspects of the project they had previously experienced doing. So what did you learn about working as a team? Well, after working together as a team, we learned that having trust and faith in the other team members' abilities was essential and diffused a lot of feelings of anxiety and stress. Shared leadership is dependent upon the professional norms of collaboration that rely on trust, respect for the expertise of the other, and mutual interdependence for its success. Slater, 2008. Knowing people is crucial in developing the trust and respect that characterizes collaborative relationships. This is Slater, 2004. One of us was far more experienced working as a team and could recount the experiences used in the corporate world to encourage team building. The other member worked in education. I work at a high school and had limited experience with team building. I sort of assumed that, but throughout the project, I learned differently. The greatest strength we possessed was our differences, our past experiences and difference of perspective. According to Dreyer et al., 2013, in some groups, the nature of the task requires a high degree of teamwork because tasks are reciprocally interdependent. Team outputs are achieved through work done in a simultaneous and interactive process, in which each individual must work in close coordination with other team members because he or she can complete tasks only through a process of interactive knowledge sharing. Thus, team members must communicate with their own requirements frequently and be responsive to the needs of the other team members. So, in what areas did you experience challenges? Well, technology was a big one. Definitely technology. That was the first answer given by the two of us, and we can say for sure. As soon as you rely on it and assume it will work correctly, it stops working. Always have a backup plan. This is an excellent experience for teachers in the classroom as well, because as soon as you rely on technology and you've made it part of your lesson, it won't work when you actually go to do it. So have a backup plan. It says, in virtual meetings or virtual teams connected across time and space by electronic media, focusing on building team relationships is even more critical than in traditional co-located teams. According to Pauline, 2004, virtual team members must be able to read all the personal and contextual nuances in a world of electronic communications. They must be able to understand the possible causes of silence, misunderstandings, and slights without any of the actual signs to guide them. Leaders must be sensitive to the flow of the team process, paying attention to the smallest matters to head off potential troubles that could derail the team's task. So, what is one thing your team did that made a positive difference with respect to navigating a challenge? Well, our team met regularly and corresponded often to help alleviate the challenges of technology and collaborated over large distances. Despite the challenges of residing in different provinces with a 3-hour time difference, we were able to overcome the obstacles and ultimately achieve success in our collaborative efforts. So Polly Bosman lives in, I believe, Ontario, and I live in BC. I live in Langley, so there's a 3-hour time difference between us. We really, the case study or someone that we really wanted to draw attention to was Kenneth Leithwood. Although open-mindedness, flexibility, and persistence are often thought of as unalterable features of the human psyche, there is clear evidence that these too can be developed. This would be among the goals for our personal reflections as leaders. As a meeting with colleagues, we might take a few moments to ask ourselves, was I reasonably open-minded? Was I as flexible as I should have been? Did I insist that we persist at the things that matter? This answer to the question of how leaders acquire the core leadership practices is not intended to rule out such obvious strategies and formal training, but it does suggest that practicing leadership with the right frame of mind, the open-minded, flexible, and persistent, will be at least as productive to the leader's development as such formal strategies. Leithwood, 2007. He really exemplifies the idea behind distributed leadership, and a lot of the team building and conflict resolution goes with that. just shows our resources afterwards. We just looked at the literature to find out ideas so we can connect the scenarios to the applications and things. And yeah, sources are always exciting, but there you go. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you listening to me, and take care.